coming up on today's episode of The Mum Show. If you have an under 7-year-old running around your house, then you're going to want to tune in because we are talking early childhood development. Hello, welcome today to The Mum Show. My name's Marina and joined today by Becky from Care for the Family.
Hi, Marina.
And Emma, who is a child psychotherapist. And we're really excited to have you today because today we are unpacking early childhood and the early childhood brain, really, aren't we? Now,
Yes.
I've been doing some maths, okay, and I'm afraid that none of us qualify anymore as mums of children in their early childhood.
It's really sad.
It is, isn't it? Because we're talking under 7s and your youngest is...
He's just turned 8, so
Just turned
just
8.
out of
Oh,
it. Yeah.
you just missed the zone.
Quite close.
It is close. And mine youngest is 9. And Emma, you're a has-been.
I know, gosh, yeah. It feels like a long, long time ago for me, but we have all been there, haven't we?
We have all been there. And I just thought, let's just kickstart by reminiscing for a moment. What's the one thing you just adored about your young children?
Oh my goodness, what did I adore? Just bath times. Loved bath times. Absolutely loved it. Just that, yeah, getting them both in the bath together was really good fun. And yeah, just letting them have that kind of expressive playtime, usually soaking the whole of the bathroom and me in the process.
And sliding across the floor.
Yeah, and just also getting them out of the bath and the whole cuddles
Yeah.
and wrapping them up. And yeah, I really, really miss that because honestly now they do, I'm 2 teenage girls. Yeah, I'm nowhere near the bathroom.
What about you, Becky?
I think just that curiosity. I think I miss that, where when they're learning new words and they're trying to say things and they just make you laugh. I remember my son once pointing out the window of the car, going, ball, ball, and it was the moon. And I was like, oh, that's just too cute. Yeah.
That is cute.
Yeah.
I really miss eating, the toddler eating. You know, the chubby little hands and the way they pick up their drinks and they, like, swallow with their tongue. And it's just so, like, you know, they're so cute, aren't they?
They are.
I do miss it. But I think we are now in a stage of life where we can look back at that really fondly. And I can tell you all about the gorgeous things they got up to. But being in the thick of it, it can be an overwhelming time, can't it? It can be hard work.
It is really, really hard work.
Exhausting.
Very, very exhausting.
So tired for so long. And your brain doesn't seem to function quite right. And it is just, it's relentless, I think.
Yeah, it is, because they always need you.
Yeah.
So you can't just have those zone out moments, can you, where you're kind of doing something else. You've always got to be on top of it, which is quite hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think that, you know, being a parent, particularly in the early years, it's that balance between connection and containment. And those are those 2 words are some of my favourite words when it comes to parenting. But I think, you know, it's that middle space between, you know, having that relationship and that closeness and that connection, and also providing them that the boundaries and the kind of, so that they are safe enough and they learn, you know, the whole thing of, you know, what's okay, what isn't okay. And it's, yeah, the balance between those 2 things. The toddler years particularly is a bit of a struggle, isn't it, with that?
Yeah, and I think as well, whilst they're learning, you're learning. Because even if you have a 5th child who's in the early childhood years, you've never parented that child.
Absolutely.
And so just because you've raised other children and they've hit 5 and 6 and 7, it doesn't mean it's going to be the same this time around. And it just requires so much brain power and curiosity and devotion. And I think at times there's often like wider things going on, like you may not get enough sleep or you may not get, you know, your dinner times when you'd like to, or adult company can be sparse with young children, can't it?
Yeah. It's just very, very stressful, I think, just generally in that time. I think you've never got time just to kind of be and sit still and reflect. It's you're constantly on to the next thing and the next thing, which, you know, in some ways I think it's really helpful helpful to kind of learn from our children at that age, because they are very present, aren't they? They are so in the moment, and we talk about it a lot on this show in terms of us being, as parents, being more present and more kind of, you know, aware and available. I think if we kind of really look at our children, and when they're very little especially, we can learn a lot from their just kind of their presence, really. They're just in it, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, they definitely are. I mean, I'm interested to know, you know, looking back a little bit and from what you guys understand about those early childhood years, if you were able to give somebody a kit list for the early years, for being an early years mum, what would you prioritise at putting in there?
I think, I suppose, going back to that word connection, and speaking, you know, particularly in terms of the research now, what we know about early brain development, we cannot underestimate the significance of the interactions between a parent and a child and how those interactions shape a baby's brain. Essentially, those interactions lay the foundation for everything in terms of your child's development, particularly in terms of how they become to be aware of themselves, how they view themselves, how they view other people. Are other people safe? Are other people trustworthy? And also how they see the world. It's all done through that foundation of the connection that you have with them during those first few years of life.
Because so much of it is real teamwork, isn't it, between you and your child? Like, I mean, there's the sense of needing to co-regulate with them. I mean, how would you explain that?
Co-regulation, oh gosh, it's a, you know, it sounds like a big word, but essentially children aren't born able to regulate their own brains. Their brains are formed from what we call the bottom up. So is it okay to do the hand model on the brain?
For it.
So this is a really helpful way of understanding how our brains are formed, and it's called the hand model of the brain, and we can do it with our children actually to help them understand how their brains are formed. So if you hold your hand like this, and put your thumb in the middle. So this part, it represents your spinal cord, and this bit, your palm of your hand, is your brain stem, and that's the very bottom bit, and that's really the bit that regulates kind of like your body temperature. All the basic survival mechanisms are here. It's the very first part of the brain to develop, and it usually develops during pregnancy. And then this second bit, which is the midbrain, which is also called the limbic system. And in that system is where we kind of learn to regulate emotions and behaviours. It's how we relate to the world. It's where all relationship stuff is contained. And then that bit is formed a little bit later during early infancy and the toddler years. And then this top bit, which is the cortex, which is that kind of all the grey matter at the above, and that's the thinking brain, that's the cortical brain, that's the bit where we learn kind of reasoning and reflection and empathy and all those kind of higher order parts of the brain that young children just don't have yet. So they are functioning very much from their limbic system. Everything is, you know, big expressed emotions, and they need us to help them co-regulate their emotions because they haven't got that higher order brain stuff yet. They're not able to reason or to kind of, you know what works for them yet. So if you can kind of think of an example of a newborn baby, you're holding a baby in your arms and the door slams in the next room. The baby's instinct is to jump. You feel them jump in their arms and they might start crying. Instinctively, you hold them close. You say, shh, it's okay. It was just the door slamming. Oh, it's okay. You're going to be fine. And you might soothe them. You might hold them. That's what we mean by co-regulation. And that baby, just through that touch, through your tone of voice, through just that sense of connection with you, learns that, oh, it's okay. I can calm down. I'm okay. I'm safe.
So that's that security and that safety,
absolutely.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
I think as mums, we're giving safety to our children. We're their safe place, aren't we?
Yeah. Definitely, because everything's new to them.
Yeah.
So, okay, so for your kit list, Emma, then, the first thing is going to be popping in connection. And I'm guessing like the aim of that really is that we want to be able to continue that presence and that connection and that co-regulation as their brain's developing. They're not going to go overnight from, you know, needing soothing from a slamming door to being able to handle, you know,
it's
so many things. Yeah, it's a process.
It's definitely a process, yeah. And the first year of life, I would say, the most important thing is that child feels safe. We talk about the 4 S's, and it's very, very important during the early years. So the 4 S's are the 4 needs that young children have. It's to feel safe, so to know that they're not going to come to any harm, to feel seen, So for their feelings and their kind of sense of themselves to be acknowledged, we all need that as humans. Safe, seen to be soothed. That's the co-regulation, to have their kind of emotions soothed by another person who can contain them. And then ultimately, all of those three lead to the fourth S, which is to feel secure. And from that place of security, they're then able to go out into the world, explore. They've got a safe base from which they can explore, and a secure haven to come back to when they need to as well.
I love that.
That's what we're trying.
I love that. Becky, what would you put in a new parent kit list?
Yeah, I think it's that sense of bonding with our little ones. And one of the things I heard was that our eyes are the strongest bonding tool we've got. And actually making eye contact with our children is so important. And I know that I had to really consciously try and put my phone away. So I wasn't staring at my phone when I was pushing the pushchair or things like that. So that actually I gave my full attention to my children, because they needed to see my face, they needed to see my eyes, they needed to see my facial expressions, and that helped me to bond with my children. And that, again, that's that sense of safety, I guess, and security. Helps them to feel loved when they see your face and they gauge from you whether what they're doing is okay or not.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
It is and it brings me back to thinking about the brain development. I know this is a bit of my, kind of something I'm very passionate about, but as well as the bottom up, that our brains also develop kind of more towards from the right side and the left side.
Okay.
So actually, if we are, and the difference between the two sides of the brain is that the right develops first. So children are very, very right brain centred. And in the right brain, that's kind of, there's like this open focus. There's open attention. They're not really tuned into detail yet. They're much more, it's all the non-verbal stuff, all the kind of emotional and non-verbal stuff. So exactly what you're saying, Becky, in terms of eye contact, facial expression, that's what our children are picking up on. They're not able to use language yet because they've not even learnt language yet. So they're really attuned to what does mummy's face look like? And that's how they experience feeling loved and feeling valued and worthwhile. And like you say, for parents where the pull of the phone is so strong now, isn't it? What message is that giving to young children? Oh, that thing that mummy's holding is more important than I am right now. So it's so important that we're aware of that.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because you can be taking photos of your child
Yeah.
and you're looking in the phone thinking how amazing and wonderful they are. Yeah. But what they're seeing, obviously, is that you're looking at something other than them.
Yeah.
Saying how wonderful it is, which
Absolutely.
it's difficult, isn't it? There's so many different things to remember. I think if I was going to give a gift to a new mum, sort of like pass down a little bit to put in their toolkit, I think I would say, don't worry about other people's expectations. I sometimes feel like, that early childhood stage when they're so young, and what we really need to be focusing on is them. Yeah. And giving them what they need and assuring them that we're there and just being really present. Yeah. I found my biggest pressure wasn't actually the relationship with my child, but it was my relationship to everybody else and their expectations of me. And when people say to me, are they sleeping through the night? What time do they go to bed? Can they use a knife and fork yet? How many words are they saying? What milestones are they reaching? Yeah. Or, oh, I notice you do it like that. Oh, okay. All those different things that you kind of pick up on self-doubt. Am I doing this right? Is this okay? Yeah. Is this how I should be doing things? And all of that can really pull away, can't it, from just zoning in on your child and being like, okay, it's you and me, or it's us and our family. Whatever situation we're in, it's just us really getting to know each other right now. Yeah. Which I think...
I had to become comfortable, I think, with knowing what stage my child was at was okay, and being comfortable that they were at that stage even if all the other babies were doing something different. I think that was, once I got to that point, then I could relax and just enjoy being a mum to my specific child and remembering that I knew my child best, I think, as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's maintaining that balance, isn't it, of being really curious about your child and really knowing them and getting to understand them without kind of taking on this external pressure of, are you going to be this, or am I doing this correctly? Are we getting that right? Which to me just feels like it can add a lot of unnecessary stress to those early childhood years, which, let's face it, can already be quite stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, that create, in order for us to really understand those pressures and where they come from, again, we need to kind of tune into ourselves, don't we? And really figure out what are our hang-ups, where are, you know, if we're so concerned about what other people think about us and our parenting, and if we're so concerned about feeling judged, then maybe that's something that we need to work on as parents ourselves.
It's really hard though.
It
really
is
hard, especially if you're in the supermarket and your child's having a big tantrum in the middle of the floor and you're like, everybody's staring at me. It's hard in that situation.
It is.
To kind of go, it's okay, it's about my child and me. It doesn't matter what others think. That's hard.
And sometimes it's just getting through that moment, isn't it? Particularly the super. I think we can all relate to the supermarket tantrum, where our primary goal is to just get out in one piece, and that's fine. We just need to do what we need to do to get out of that situation, and then we can deal with it maybe afterwards.
That's actually a part of regulating ourselves as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Like, if I can't perform what I need to do, if I can't connect with you in this stressful situation. I mean, I just remember my daughter kicking off because she wanted a pink piano. Pink piano. A pink piano, Mummy! I want a pink piano. And she was 2, and we'd bought her the piano for Christmas. She just didn't know yet, you know.
Yeah.
And it just escalated so much. And I remember picking her up, you know, stiff as a board, walking her out like this and getting ready. And I popped her down and just sat on the floor outside the shop, popped her on my crossed legs. And a lady just came up to me and she rubbed me on the back and she went, "We've all been there, love.
Yeah.
We've all been there. No one's judging. You do what you need to do." And walked off, and I was like, "You angel."
Yeah, that's exactly what you needed to hear. At that moment,
we've all been there, and it happens to all of us, and it's just so hard because I think it's that clash of worlds where, you know, we can be so insecure about our parenting and getting it right, but then actually that's not helpful in the moment.
No.
Every stage is so new, isn't it?
That's it.
It's always something new. There's something in the next month, often, especially in the early years.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't encountered this before. How do I deal with this new thing?
Yeah.
And you're always learning and changing. And again, you're tired as well. So there's so many different factors. I think mums just do an incredible job when they're just having, with babies now, I'm like, gosh, I couldn't go back to that stage. You think, how did we get through it?
I know, it is strange. And when you're in the moment, because you are in the moment, like we've said, with any kind of different stage of development, and particularly when they're little, it is all consuming. And you just think, you know, that stage of them not sleeping through the night, for example, you think, am I ever going to sleep again? And you do, and it moves on. And there's, you know, I'm a parent of 2 teenage girls now, and believe me, I'm in the moment with that stuff now. And probably in a few years, I'll look back and think, how did I get through this?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we like to show a video of our friends who are in the midst of it. So I'm going to introduce you to a good friend of mine called Beth. So this is Beth having a little playtime with her children.
Hi, my name's Beth, and I would never have thought that I would be a playful mum whatsoever. And I didn't really even know how to go about playing with my children, but I knew that it was really important because that's all that they wanted to do. And also, they learn best definitely through play. So firstly, what I just did is just observed them and just looked at what they wanted to play with, really. And my daughter Verity just naturally started playing peekaboo. And so therefore I just expanded on that and grew that into hide and seek, something really simple that I could play anywhere, in the house, in the garden, in the park, and just started playing that with her and really connected through that because she just loved playing it. And then I also realised that I could involve my children in what I loved playing with. So I love like card games and board games. So we introduced my son to games at a really early age, just really simple games, and he loved it. And I think he loved it because I enjoyed it so much as well, and that just rubbed off on him. I understood how sad he felt when he lost, and I got his competitive attitude. I knew exactly where that had come from. So we just really connected through those games. What types of things do you like playing with, Mum?
Card games. I like going to the park and playing football. I like giving her cuddles. And I hide and seek.
Oh, hide and seek. It's so cute, isn't it? But I guess when we're talking about being present with our children and tuning into them and getting into the moment, I mean, there's no better way sometimes than play, is there, to really meet them in their worlds.
Absolutely. Play is their language. It's the way that children communicate is through play. You know, I trained as a play therapist, so this is obviously something that, again, I'm really passionate about. But just, you know, setting aside, even if it's just a few minutes a day, to just get on the floor with your toddler or little one and just follow them. I mean, they're you know, just allow them the creative kind of space to explore the toys that you lay out for them or whatever it is, and just enjoy being with them. I think that is, you know, you get the benefits of the connection, but you also kind of get the all the benefits of just getting to know them as well, and
Definitely.
seeing what they like, what they don't like, what their interests are.
Because I think you can learn a lot from your children when you play with them. The sort of play that they go for, I always find really curious, because you're like, that's really interesting. Like, you know, my son is always creating and building. He's always creating stuff. And I'm like, okay, that tells me a lot about what you're into, probably what you're going to be passionate about. Gives me a place to meet you. But it's another one of those things, isn't it? I mean, I remember 2:00 every afternoon, me and my little boy would play train tracks. And I found it exhausting because I have no spatial awareness. I could not make the train connect. Like, I couldn't make the track meet up at all. And I'd be like, every now and then I'd go, Ruben, get daddy. Dominic, you need to come and make this train track work. I can't do it. And he'd be like, yeah, are you serious? But, you know, it required so much mental energy for me to play. And sometimes, as much as we want to be able to play with our children, sometimes it's hard work, isn't it? Sometimes
Really
it's
hard
tiring.
work. Yeah, and if that's not how, like, if you can't see it making sense. So I'm similar with the train tracks, but for me it was really frustrating if it didn't join up, and they were quite happy to leave it just be. And actually letting it just be and be incomplete was, I had to learn to let that happen. And I was like, okay, it's all right. It doesn't make perfect sense, but and that's okay. So it's learning to do things their way. I think is quite helpful as well.
Yeah, and letting them lead is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of it's making me think of we often use in my work the acronym PACE in terms of parenting. It's like adopting an attitude of PACE in terms of our parenting, and it's an acronym that stands for playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, and empathy. And what you're describing there in terms of allowing it to just be as it is really about accepting, isn't it? It's just accepting this is how it is in right now, and not kind of putting all your kind of like projections or preconceived ideas or judgments on a situation. It's just accepting the child for who they are as well. That's such a huge part of kind of parenting, particularly little ones who are going to do things that trigger us and that aren't, you know, kind of things that we really, you know, want our children to do. They're, you know, they're children, they're going to do it, and we kind of accepting them as they are is really important.
It shows them value as well, I think, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're giving them that focused attention which they desperately need, and because you're doing what they want to do, I think it's just amazing, really, how that impacts the child's brain as well. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I think it helps them know throughout the rest of their lives that what they do has value. Whereas if we're constantly interrupting and saying, well, I can make that look better, or I can turn that into something that's valuable to the world because it connects, and we need that for a train station, you know, actually we start to put a doubt on, like, you always need me to finish things off for you. And obviously, I mean, it's such a big job to try and help our children become independent in these years, isn't it? And feel confident in who they are. And I think sometimes play can be a really effective way of just building their confidence and showing them that, yeah, we can try it your way.
Yeah, and try not. I think one of the hardest things that I've experienced, kind of playing with parents and children together, is trying to get the parents to just hold back and not jump in and fix it. You know, I think as parents, we are, you know, one of probably the things that we struggle with the most is when our children are suffering in any way or seem unhappy. But actually, part of that acceptance, I think, is about accepting that. You know, life is about experiencing pain as well as joy. And for a toddler, if say a toddler's built a big tower and he's knocked it down by accident, falls apart. His world has just fallen apart. And we jump in and say, it's okay, Mum, we can help you build it again. It's all okay, it's all okay. That's our tendency, isn't it? Because we want to jump in and rescue. When actually, just to say, your blocks have fallen, you're so sad, you are so disappointed that your blocks have fallen, it's okay. And just being with them and allowing that sadness, allowing that to be as it is. And then, I wonder what we could do. And then working together. Cooperation, yeah.
Because it gives them language as well, doesn't it? Because then all of a sudden they say, oh, this is what I'm feeling right now is sadness.
Yeah.
Which is really helpful.
Yeah, hugely important.
I've got a really fun game that I like playing with preschool children or with little children, and it's you know, if you just like pick up a stick and you pretend it's a wand, and then you magic them into things, you know. So now you're going to be abracadabra, a frog. The best fun is when you give them the stick. And then they'll always be like, I can get this huge adult to do whatever I want. And they'll say something crazy like, you know, I want you to be a cow and moo or something like that. And then you just do whatever they say. And I used to do that with my children a lot. And as well as it being like a really funny time and them just kind of like being in absolute hysterics and giggling to see mummy do these weird things, I always felt like, you know, deep inside, I think it's probably really good for you to see that you can shape the world a little bit through your play, that you have that, you know, that cause and effect, that you can impact things around you, because I think at that age, you know, often the upsets and the meltdowns can come because somebody else is controlling everything and they need someone else for everything.
Yeah. It goes back to the balance, doesn't it, between connection and containment, you know, because there are times when, yes, our children we need them to do things in a certain way, but I think if we can be really creative in the way that we get our children to do things, you know, for example, brushing teeth time, some children are really resistant to brushing their teeth. So it's like, shall we hop into the bathroom tonight, or should we jump, or should we dance into the bathroom tonight to brush our teeth? It's trying to be playful and create, you know, have a game, and so you still get the end result, but you're maintaining the connection whilst you're doing it.
And it doesn't have to be like all the time either, does it? No. I think that reassured me, because I think you felt like you had to spend hours every day on the floor playing with your children.
Mary Poppins.
I know, yeah. And I was like, I can't do that. I found play difficult, but, you know, more so maybe than some mums. But actually, like just 5 minutes a day, you know, or 5 minutes, you know, in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon, taking those little snippets of time, and that makes a difference. It doesn't have to be kind of these hour-long events either, does it? It actually all makes a difference.
Yeah, and actually something else that's quite reassuring in terms of that kind of sensitive, responsive, relationship that we're trying to build with our very little ones. Even if we only do that 50% of the time, and the other 50% we don't quite get it quite right, that's enough for our children to grow up feeling safe and secure and soothed. So you don't have to get this perfectly 100% of the time.
It's reassuring.
Really reassuring. It's certainly an exciting and adventurous time of life, isn't it?
It really is.
It really is. And that getting to know a brand new person also, I find, gets me to know me a little bit better as well.
Absolutely.
As you're kind of like, oh, wow, I think like that. I'm training you in that way. This is how I deal with my stress. Okay. Which is always an adventure. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for chatting through this subject with me. As always, you're incredibly useful, incredibly helpful. Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode as well. Don't forget, if you want to keep up to date with our episodes and check out lots more of the resources available, then you can go and have a look at the website shown below. In the meantime, we hope we'll see you again. Take care.